Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you here with me. Welcome to the What's on Your Mind podcast. This episode was one of the coolest episodes I was able to do because it was an experience that I didn't think I'd ever get. So for my Journalism 300 class, I had the opportunity to interview someone. And it had to be someone in the area I was in because my school is in East Lansing, and with how Journalism 300 worked, everyone got assigned to a specific beat. And a beat is pretty much a team where that team would do specific work based on the area you're in. So the beat I had was Grand Ledge. And part of me being a part of the Grand Ledge beat was I had to interview someone in this area. And so I had the opportunity to interview an incredible judge, a very nice judge who gave me the time of day to sit down and talk with her about a lot of things. Because even with the assignment, even if you reached out to people, that didn't mean they'll respond back. I had people who didn't respond back to me when I reached out to them for this interview, and it was totally fine. I'm a student journalist. Well, I'm a student who's a journalist. And since at the time, I didn't have a lot of credentials. Even if I did have a lot of credentials, nobody's obligated to do an interview with me. So once I got this interview with her, it meant a lot to me. And the interview went really well. At least I think so. And I hope you all do as well. I really appreciate you giving me your time hearing this interview. And if you ever have a chance, tell me what's on your mind. Thank you, and I hope you tune in to another episode. Enjoy the interview. To begin, I want to say thank you again for having this interview with me. I know you don't have a lot of time, too much time on your plate. But to begin, I wanted to ask, what inspired you to pursue the judicial system and wanting to become a judge? Was it always something you wanted to do? And how was the path to becoming a judge?
That's a big question. I graduated from Michigan State actually
Really?
with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I had a specialty in juvenile delinquency.
Okay.
And so after that, I worked as a youth specialist for 4 years.
Wow.
And then there came a point when I decided that I wanted to go to law school.
Mm-hmm.
So I started going to law school at nights and on the weekends. They offered that at Cooley, which is one of the main reasons that I thought it would be helpful to go there, is just because they offered nights and weekends so you could still work. And I ended up having 2 children during the time frame that I was going to law school, my first 2 children. So then when I graduated from law school, I was a practicing attorney for about 14 years.
Okay.
And I practiced throughout the state of Michigan. The last 7 years of my practice, I was on the federal public defender panel. So I was doing work in the federal courts, going to Grand Rapids as well. So I had a pretty good practice on a state and federal level. And then I live in Eaton County, and I've lived in Eaton County my whole life.
Okay.
And in Eaton County, it's pretty rural. It expands out, from the Lansing Mall to the other side of Olivet, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But our court is just one building with everybody in the same courthouse.
Okay.
So there's two district court judges. Now, when I started practicing, Judge Hoffman was already the district court judge. And after 25 years, he decided that he was not going to run again. He was going to retire.
Okay.
But he made that decision kind of last minute, or like a little bit before the time frame where people would have to know about it to decide if they wanted to run for it. Mm-hmm. So when that news came out, myself and a whole bunch of other attorneys were like, what? Oh my gosh, what does this mean? Like, you couldn't even imagine him not being in that seat, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we started talking about who was going to run for it, what was going to happen. And actually myself and another attorney were talking about it, and he was thinking about running And so I was going to support him. And then he, after talking to his wife and family, decided not to and told me that I should do that. And that was really the first time that I thought about it, honestly. And I thought about it for a couple of reasons after that. I thought, if I don't take this opportunity now, there might not be another opportunity. Just the dynamics and how things work, especially in a rural county like this. Like this might be my only shot. And since I was in private practice, I had nothing to lose either. Like I'm not going to lose my job over it, basically. That even in the worst case scenario. And I honestly felt that having worked in the juvenile justice system and then being a practicing attorney on a state and federal level, that I had a lot to offer. And then I wanted to try to use my skills and my purpose in a different way. And so all that together just made me decide that I was going to go for it and I was going to run. So I did. I had an opponent and luckily I was successful and won the election.
That's pretty dope. That whole story, just getting to the point you are now. What was your favorite part during this whole thing? Like you mentioned the youth, and then you mentioned you worked somewhere for about 14 years, and then the campaigning process. What was your favorite part, and what was your most difficult part? Just getting through that and not knowing if you'll get to where you are now.
Yeah. I don't have a favorite part really because I love people. So whether it's working, with a young person that was struggling or trying to learn basic skills to live on their own, or whether it was helping somebody through one of the most traumatic experiences of their life, being, charged with a crime, going through the criminal justice process, whatever it was. I love working with people and helping people and doing what I can in that regard. And I love trial work. Like when I was in law school, I didn't know that I wanted to be a trial lawyer. I honestly thought for some reason I would just do more like something in the probate court for juveniles, or maybe like a medical malpractice. I had like a family situation where that kind of interested me. But once I started taking trial skills and evidence classes, it's one of those things like you don't know you love it until you experience it. And then you just feel it. Like sometimes life is not necessarily about figuring out what you want to do, but what you don't want to do. And once I started doing that, I was like, there's really nothing else I want to do now. So I just love that. And then I was in school and I did like trial skills classes, and then I was on the trial team. And I worked at a couple of different courts to get experience. And then I decided to open up my own practice. And practicing in court was my favorite thing, favorite thing to do, being in a courtroom. So, and the circumstances of the election just kind of came upon me. And there is really no right time. It's just whether or not you're willing to do what it takes, and you're willing to try something new, and you're willing to put yourself out there. There is no perfect time for anything. And so all that just happened. So then I was you have a 6-year term as a district court judge.
Okay.
So then I was up for re-election last year, because the first time I ran was in 2016. I took the bench in January of 2017. Then I was up for re-election last year in 2022. Someone did run against me, so I had to do the whole campaign, go through that process again. And I was blessed enough to succeed as well. So now I'm starting my 2nd year term. So this is the beginning of my 7th year.
That's really cool to hear. Was there any more pressure when you ran the second time, or were you used to it at that point when doing the whole process?
I thought it was 1,000 times worse.
Really?
Yeah, because the first time I was practicing, and so I can multitask. Like I could go to court, and then in between my breaks at court, I could, stop at places to talk to people. I used to go door knocking during my lunch hours. Like there was a
Mm-hmm.
speedway on the corner of Saginaw and Kreitz that I always used to stop at, and I would change in the bathroom there, put my campaign shirt on, go hit some neighborhoods, come back. I would do that almost every day, to the point where like the people there that were working were like, girl, just leave your stuff here. And then you can just, because you're doing the same thing, like you
Mm-hmm.
can just put your shirt on, and, you don't have to bring your stuff in every time. So, but I could multitask. Or when I went to court or anywhere I went, I could talk to people, judges, other attorneys, clients, families, other people, let them know what's going on, but, and I didn't have the job. So I didn't have that pressure of losing something.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was in private practice, I knew that if I lost, I would still go about my same practice the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, as the election got closer the first time when I was in private practice, just getting out there more in the community and letting people know who you were and what you were about, I had way more business even than I wanted. Like I would have to turn down business or say like, I'm about to go into an election that if I win, I'm not going to be able to represent you. And people will be like, I don't care. Like, just let me retain you now, and then we'll see what happens. So just the dynamics of all of that. Then, fast forward now, when you're a judge and you're running for reelection, you can't do anything during the workday,
Mm-hmm.
because you work for the people, and that's how you are also paid, through tax dollars
Mm-hmm.
of the people. So you can't do anything from 8 to 5, maybe on a lunch hour if you actually left the courthouse. So you don't have the ability to multitask. So everything I had to do to campaign had to be like during my lunch hour or at nighttime. And so it's a lot harder, and there's no combination. Or even like if somebody said something to me, I
Mm-hmm.
can't talk to you about that. um and so it was a lot more demanding, because you had to completely separate yourself.
Okay. When going through this whole process and then finally getting the news that you did retain your position and you'll be moving forward as the judge, do you remember the feeling you had once it was like a big relief on your shoulders, like we finally made it and now we're going to continue doing what I love? Do you remember that feeling?
Yeah, I felt relieved. Honestly, I felt relieved. I felt happy that it was over. Not so much even for me, but for everyone that works for me, because they realized too that, whether it was my bailiffs or my court recorder or the people that I worked with for a period of time now, 6 years, you end up spending more time with people you work with than
Mm-hmm.
you do almost your own families. That I was relieved for them too, because even though you try to hide, your stress and your pressures of doing everything, it still kind of bleeds out into stuff. And then if I lost my job, my staff would lose their job too.
Really?
So, because a new judge gets to come in and bring their own court recorder, secretary with them,
Wow.
as well as their own staff. Mm-hmm.
I never would have thought about that. When you mentioned that you are a mother, you have kids, and how did you balance the career you have now while also being a parent and trying to take care of that dynamic as well? Because that's a whole nother job in its own right.
Yeah. I have 3 kids, so that is sometimes a balancing act. In the first election, my youngest son was only 6.
Mm.
So he got a really, like, I don't know, like a candy coated view of the world, I think, because, for example, we would do parades a lot. And in Eaton County, there's a lot of parades, like probably 8 to 9 parades just in the election cycle. So we would do a lot of parades, but we'd be in the parade, on the float or in the back of a truck, and we'd be throwing out candy, doing balloons and bubbles and all that stuff. So I remember after the election was over, that next summer, we were going to go to the St. Patrick's Day parade in Grand Ledge. And we get there and he's like, I want to be in the parade. And I'm like, well, we're going to the parade. We're at the parade. And then I finally realized he thinks being in a parade
Hmm.
is normal. Like, not that people, you just go to the parade like a normal person, or a person who's not running for something or in it for a different reason is just going to the parade.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I want to be in the parade. So when I decided, when I had an opponent the second time and told him what was going on, because now he's almost 13, that was his first response. Does that mean we get to do parades again? So it's like the things that, he thinks about it are kind of sweet and funny to me. And that you realize that your kids kind of pick up on those things
Mm-hmm.
that you're doing.
Have any of your kids thought about pursuing the field you're in, or maybe had any interest about it at all?
My daughter is an absolute no, not at
Hmm.
all. And she's like not really interested in it at all. And
Mm-hmm.
she is in healthcare and she loves that. And
Okay.
she's actually the kind of the perfect person for that. I couldn't see myself doing that at all, but she is amazing at that. My middle son, he's in law school right now.
Okay.
And then my younger son, he just told me last week that they took some kind of a like career interest test, or some kind of like, what would you be, he had an acronym for it, but something about what kind of career you'd be best suited for.
Mm-hmm.
He said they then tell you the 3 careers that you would be excellent at. I'm like, oh, well, what are they? He said they were a corporate attorney,
Hmm.
a criminal defense attorney, or an FBI agent. I was like, oh,
Wow.
that's interesting. So I don't know what he's going to think about that in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad was an attorney.
Oh, wow.
And so now that my middle son's in law school, we started talking about like you would be a third generation lawyer. And I
Oh,
never
wow.
thought that would ever happen, honestly. And so my younger son, when he was going through those careers, he said, if I went to law school, would I be a 4th generation? I'm like, well, kind of, but you're brothers, but I'm still going to say yes. Like,
That's a
so
that's a really great legacy to have, and just have that in your family, and then also have a daughter a part of the medical field. It's so many different avenues that it can go about. That's pretty cool. And with having your middle son in law school and just knowing what this path you had to go through to get here, what advice would you or did you give him when pursuing law school? And just to me as well, was also in college, what would be the overall advice you would give to him specifically when trying to pursue a career as yours, and also just to any college student trying to pursue a career of their dreams?
yeah. I remember the days of going to college vividly. And there's a lot of different stresses and pressures. And what I think about college and law school, especially, it's a mental boot camp. So some people may go to the army and they have a boot camp period and it's physical and you have to pass certain tests.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to college, you're signing yourself up for a mental boot camp because you have to be disciplined, you have to be consistent, and you have to realize you're doing it not for immediate gratification, but for something down the line that you're trying to win or sustain for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So don't, take it lightly, or if you feel like it's tiresome or overwhelming sometimes, that's because it is. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mental boot camp. And the second thing is that think of it as a blessing, because I truly believe that knowledge is power. So you're there to give yourself the gift of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
even though you may think of it as like a duty, or when you look at the syllabus, like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do this, this week or whatever. Think of it as a blessing or a privilege to be able to learn that information for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And for girls, especially, for women and girls, young ladies, especially, that is so invaluable. My dad, who was a farmer in Nebraska, the
Mm-hmm.
oldest of 12 children, the only person in his family to ever go to college.
Wow.
and then to law school. And so we lived on a farm in Eaton Rapids when I grew up.
Hmm.
And I remember him telling me when I first started college, you know, you think you're cute right now, but all that's going to fade. And what you're going to be left with is what's in your head. And
Wow.
nobody can ever take that from you. Nobody can take that from you.
That's a great quote.
Hmm. So that is why I believe like so much that knowledge is power, because that is yours forever.
I really, really appreciate that advice, and I'll personally take it to heart. When growing up on the farm with your dad in Nebraska, was it what was the difference between growing up on a farm and then moving away from that?
Not really that much. I don't feel like.
Mm,
I feel like it gave me a lot of great lessons that could be applied to anywhere.
mm-hmm.
You know, being able to do things that you don't see yourself doing, having the discipline to take care of other things that then benefit you, being
Mm-hmm.
able to appreciate, your land and nature. It gives you a different kind of work ethic, I think. I wouldn't think about that at the time when I had to clean out the horse stalls and stuff. I really did not think like this is a great blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I'd rather be doing something else. But looking back, I feel like that now.
Definitely understandable. Do you have a favorite animal?
Oh, horses. I love horses.
That's really cool. When you were growing up on the farm and just having that childhood, did you always want to pursue the judicial system and wanted to be a judge, or did it change as you got older?
I never saw myself being a judge.
Really?
No. In fact, when we grew up on a farm, my dad was an attorney. He worked for the attorney general's office. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize this until I was like 12 or 13. I honestly thought that he was a farmer. Like in the morning, he would not be around, but I thought that because he was just out doing stuff, but really he got up really early and went to work.
Mm.
And I got home from school. I was in after school activities and this and that. So either he'd be picking me up, or by the time I got home, he would already be changed, or he would be about changing to go out to do chores and stuff. So I
Wow.
never really realized that until I was probably like 12, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he did an excellent job of balancing both those things. And then, everybody has that moment where they um, don't necessarily see themselves as their parents or don't want to do what their parents are doing, right? So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, once I realized that, I remember when he would come home from work, we would talk about his day while we were getting ready to go out to do chores and stuff. And what I always thought in my mind was, he's somebody that's trying to fix problems like after they've already happened. So I used to tell him, I don't want to be like that or like you. I want to be somebody who's going to try to fix problems before they happen, which is why I went into juvenile delinquency and social work. And he was
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, okay, that's great. So I didn't really see myself ever wanting to to be on the other side, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
for quite a while.
I can definitely imagine having that dynamic of, first of all, realizing that your dad is almost living a double life and having two different careers, but also just seeing the things that he can accomplish and knowing that you can be somewhere at that type of status one day. I can imagine that was inspiring to see once he really thought about how much he would do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And I definitely know that being a part of the field you are now is not easy at all. And in your position, it's almost if you have people's lives in your hands. From
Hmm.
analyzing things and making the best decisions to get the safest and efficient result, you have a lot on your plate. Not to mention any of the other responsibilities you have to take care of. And I just want to ask, how do you get yourself in the calmest mindset to handle your day-to-day life as a judge? And how is this strategy developed and adapted the longer you've been a part of the judicial system and been a judge?
That's a really great question.
Thank you.
Um, I think having the experience as a practicing attorney before becoming a judge really helped me a lot. There
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of times in the first 6 months to a year when I took the bench that I thought, I don't know how somebody does this who didn't practice before,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very fast paced, especially in district court. And it's on your toes, quick decisions, but you got to already have a background of the law and criminal procedure. And then I have a civil docket as well. I never did civil work before, but they don't care. You still got civil cases week one. And just having the background of like, how do I learn something quickly and apply it? And then be able to talk about it in a way that sounds articulate
Mm-hmm.
and is clear. Had I not practiced before, I don't believe, been able to do that as well.
Okay.
Or the stress of it would have got to me. The other part is that I firmly believe that you know more than what you think you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to trust your purpose, and that as long as you try your best, that's all that you can do.
Okay.
You can't control all this other stuff that's going on or how people respond to it.
Definitely understandable. With being in the position you are now, what was the most impactful or memorable moment that you've had so far with being a judge in the courtroom?
That's really hard, but I will say I've had moments where I wasn't sure what the right decision was to make, and those always stick in my mind. And I've had moments where I've seen people change their life. I run the sobriety and drug court treatment court program,
Mm-hmm.
and I have seen people change their life, become literally different people before my own eyes.
Wow.
And I just will never forget each and every person that I've had the opportunity to see. I've also learned to like trust my gut instinct more, go back to like, you know what, more than what you think you know. If I feel like somebody is in front of me and they're in danger or they're at risk of, losing themselves or doing something that they really shouldn't be doing on any type of level,
Mm-hmm.
I trust that more instead of doubting it. And I also have gained confidence over time to realize, part of the judge's main role is to apply the law.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't make the law. I don't get to argue about the law. When it comes to me, I have to apply the law. But I can also use that short window of time that I have with a person or an attorney or with the jury or whoever to put forth what you believe would be beneficial for everybody and for what your purpose is. Like, for example, this is what I still remember to this day. It was probably, I'd say, week or month 4 or 5 when I was on the bench.
Okay.
And there was a young man being sentenced in front of me for, I think it was an alcohol or drug related offense. I'm not really sure. So he was in front of me being sentenced and we were going over stuff. And I was reading his sentencing report. And he had been through a horrible, horrible childhood. And he was in his early 20s. And we were talking about stuff. And there was something about that moment when we were talking that I said to him, I want to tell you 2 things. And he just looked at me and I said, the first thing I want to tell you is what happened to you in your childhood has absolutely nothing to do with you. And all the things that you have done since you became an adult, you should be proud of yourself for all the things that you've been able to accomplish. Sometimes we focus just on what's wrong, but we don't take the time to focus on what you're doing right. And you've done a lot of right things, and I'm proud of you for that. And this guy, who is not a guy that you would think would be emotional, he just started bawling, like just tears running down his face. His whole body was shaking. And then I became kind of petrified, like, oh shit, what did I just do? Like, what is going on? So I just said naturally, why are you crying? And he said, nobody in my life has ever told me that they're proud of me.
Wow.
And in that moment, I realized your words have power too.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to take those moments to, try to reach people in whatever way that you can, regardless of why they're there or what's going on.
That
So that taught me a lot.
that brings an interesting question that I also had noted down, but especially just to ask you now, do you have to separate some of your emotions when doing your job as a judge, or do you still feel them and allow them to properly judge the decision you should make to help that person?
It's kind of a combination of both. I try to be honest and transparent all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell people that, like, I'm going to be honest with you. This is what, I'm looking at. This is what I'm thinking. This is what my response is going to be if I see you back with the same issue. This is
Mm-hmm.
what I think is really going on. I'm concerned about you. I'm worried about you. I don't feel like you're not getting it. I feel like you're not listening. Whatever I'm thinking, I try to be honest and transparent as possible. But there is a fine line where you have to gauge yourself and make sure that whatever you think doesn't legally affect your decision. Like, your
Mm-hmm.
decision still has to be legally sound, but you can have thoughts and feelings about it as well.
Okay.
So, like, I had an example in the opposite where there was a lady who came in front of me on a misdemeanor and she was being sentenced. And the misdemeanor was a 1-year misdemeanor. So the maximum amount of time that I could sentence her was 365 days
Okay.
for the offense. And uh, I was so taken aback by her criminal behavior and her lack of understanding how she affected so many people by her actions, her mental disregard just for people in general, like heinous. She hid this crime, she lied about it, all these things that added up to the point where I said to her, this is my 7th year sitting on the bench, and never have I ever said to another individual, I wish I could give you more time than what is allowed by law.
Wow.
That's how I'm feeling right now. I said, I wish I could give you more time than the 365 that's available to me. So I'm giving you the whole 365. And I hope during that time frame you think about A, B, C, and D, whatever. And then I had another case after that, another sentencing after that, but you know yourself well enough to know you can't make decisions based on emotions too. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'll just stay on the bench and then let the next case come up, or if I can tell, like, my court recorder needs a break, we'll take a break, whatever. But sometimes you have to know yourself too and realize I need to take a break. So I was like, we're going to be in recess for a few moments for the next case. Then we just all walked off. I took a minute just to make sure all that is going to be gone before I come back in.
Mm-hmm. Was there
So you have to check yourself.
in that moment or moving forward from that moment, have you heard anything from that specific individual that they improved at all, or has there?
No, she's still in jail because this just happened like in January.
Okay. Well, we hope for the best for that situation.
Yes, we do.
um, one of the last questions I had for you with it was more on just a perspective and how certain things are portrayed in the media. And you see certain shows like Judge Judy or Law and Order, and they have certain moments and portrayals of the criminal justice system or judicial systems. Do you think
Hmm.
that those representations are good or bad, or have you thought about it at all to see are those proper representations of your field, or is it more just for entertainment purposes?
I love legal shows. So Law and Order is my favorite show. I think I've
Mm-hmm.
seen every show. I love watching the Law and Order marathons. They're literally like, you can't leave. It's a binge marathon. I'm like, oh God. So I love those shows. In New York, that show is based in New York. So they do things differently than we do in our criminal justice system, like for example, they use a grand jury system and we don't,
Mm,
and the prosecutor gets to go last in making their arguments. And here we don't do it that way. It's more dramatic. But there is a lot of really good legal scenarios and evidentiary questions in that show.
mm-hmm,
So I don't really think that's a bad misrepresentation. I think it's really good to understand too that prosecutors who are charged with the duty of determining what to charge people and why, they have their own struggles as well. Like everyone's role in the criminal justice system is difficult.
mm-hmm,
And so you see that a little bit of the struggle, and sometimes you see the problems that they have and how their work can affect them and the decisions that they make too. And that's
mm-hmm.
good to understand because humans are not perfect in that regard. But other shows like Judge Judy, for example, I think that's more entertaining. But what I find in like a lot of those type of shows is I feel like there's this need to be disrespectful to people. And I
Mm.
don't like that at all. I don't think that's appropriate. Like at the end of the day, regardless of what happens, I want each person to feel like they're heard and that they're respected.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like when people are disrespected or snarky stuff is said or, you know, cut off or I think she's a little rude, really, so
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessary, or you don't need to be personal about it.
Mm-hmm. I
So
understand.
I don't like that part of it where that's the persona or the stereotype that's how judges are.
Yeah, because this is my first conversation I've had with someone a part of this field, and I never knew like if those were like how judges really are, or is it more TV, or is it somewhere in the middle? So it's cool to hear the perspective from someone who actually has been doing this for a while.
Yeah. That's one of the things that you should do. Courtrooms and courthouses are open to the public. People forget about that. You can come into any courtroom and just sit in the gallery. You can bring your laptop, your Chromebook, you can work on your school studies, you can
Mm-hmm.
do whatever you want. But just being in the environment, you'd be surprised what you're able to observe or pick up on, or just have a different place, to go. That's not the school or the library that you can study or just have a chill moment.
Okay, I actually wasn't aware of that you could do that.
Yeah, they're open to the public. So anybody can come into any courtroom anytime because the courts and the court system, as well as the judges, work for the public. A court actually cannot be closed unless there's an order, and the order has to say for what reason. And like there has to be a motion and order. Like there's some grave public safety issue or some significant privacy issue, which is very rare. I've never had that happen.
Okay, well, I'll definitely keep that in mind moving forward. And
Especially as an upcoming journalist.
yeah, one of the coolest things about the assignment I got from my professor is she gave like a list of people to try and reach out to. And I was having trouble seeing like, okay, who could I have a conversation with where I can ask pretty good questions and get a lot of informative answers? And then I saw that you were on the list of people that recommended the interview. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a judge in this area. Cause I'm not from East Lansing at all. I'm from Detroit. And
Okay.
having to that knowledge, I immediately called your assistant, and it was so funny that your assistant is really good because I called and I spoke to them on the phone, and I referred to you as Julie just because I didn't know like the parameters of how do you want to be referred to, and she was like, "Well, it's Judge O'Neill. Make sure you don't make sure you don't get in trouble." I'm like, "You please, thank you so much for correcting me." And when you answer when I called and you said Julie, I'm like, okay, do I say Judge O'Neill? Do I say Julie? So that was funny to have that reminder that this is your position. So I just wanted to make sure I referred to you in the most respectful way possible when we were on the phone and then we were talking now.
Yeah, I didn't even know how you found me or that I was on some list. I had no idea.
So how my professor did it, she divided everyone in the class up in beats or specific areas to go towards, and I got Grand Ledge, and
Okay.
they recommended some websites to go on to see like who you could interview. And once I got to Grand Ledge, I saw that there were like different officials a part of like the area, and then I saw judges. I'm like, it would be really amazing to interview a judge. I never had the opportunity to. So once I got there and then saw your name, then I tried. I didn't know who to contact at first because it didn't give like a number at first, and then I reached your assistant, and then we got here.
That's wonderful. I love your go-getness and your creativity. That's awesome.
And that means the world to me. I really appreciate that. With that being said, with this interview so far, do you have any questions for me or just any last things you'd like to say at all?
No, I just want to thank you for reaching out to me. And anytime you want to do an interview about a specific topic or anything at all, I'd be happy to help you. Or if you want leads in the future, information in the future, I have a Facebook page. So a lot of
Okay.
times I'll put community events on there too. That might be a way for you to, get your feel for what's going on in the community as well.
Okay.
But I'm more than happy to talk to you or meet with you anytime.
What's the Facebook specifically?
Well, I started it. I have my personal Facebook, which is just my name, but then I have a Judge O'Neill one that I just post like community events people would be aware of, or like what's going on, where I'm going to be at, or different things like that.
Okay.
And then I have a quote board I have a write-on board, I should say, in my courtroom. And I realized after a while that nobody was using it for anything. So one time over the weekend, I had this idea about putting a quote on it that people could just look at while they're sitting there in the gallery. So now I post something every Monday.
Oh, wow.
And so I call it the courtroom quote board.
Okay. One last question I have, and then I'll let you go. You've mentioned that certain districts do different things and handle things differently. With people you could have in the courtroom and like be a judge over, could it be many different types of people, or is there more of a specification you have when making certain decisions about certain people who are in your courtroom?
Well, district court is great because it's the place where everybody starts. So when you come into a courthouse, your first stop is district court, because I handle traffic cases, misdemeanors, felony cases, civil stuff, small claims, the jail arraignments, setting bonds. So you start here in district court, and where you end up going depends on what happens and what decisions are made. So I also take that seriously too, because for a lot of people, that's their first time that they're coming into a courthouse, or the first time they're coming into a courtroom is in front of you.
Okay.
So it's the first stop.
That's really, I can imagine the impact you could have on someone before they go to somewhere else, if they even go anywhere else based on your decision. I can imagine that's a lot of responsibility to have.
Yeah, but I do think it's a little bit less formal because of it, because we're busier. You kind of have that busier mentality. I mean, a little bit now, it's not the same as when I first started, where, like your whole courtroom gallery would be full, or people, it was real busy, real kind of loud, just a lot going on. It's not like that as much anymore since we got back in person after COVID, but there are times when it's still like that. And so it gives other people opportunity to see even what's happening in court too. When they're there for their thing, they can still see what everybody else has got going on or what's happening. So I do think it is a really good opportunity. People, like when I started doing the quote board, I didn't know how people were going to respond to it. And the very first time I put up a quote, I put it on the board on Monday morning, and we were having a busy day. I do my felony cases on Monday. So an attorney came in, and he started to walk up towards, the middle to talk to me, like the microphone area of the courtroom. So he had to pass the quote board. So he kind of just stops. He's kind of a dramatic, character anyway, in a good way. But I mean, he has a presence, right? So he was walking up here. He stops and looks at it, and he's like, "Who wrote this on the board?" And I said, "Well, I did." He goes, "Oh my God, I love it!" And then everyone just started laughing because it was so outrageously almost fake. And then But at the end of the morning, a guy that was sitting out in the gallery stood up and he said, "Can I ask you a question?" I was like, "Sure, you can ask. May not be able to answer it, but yes you can." And he said, to my surprise, "Can I take a picture of this quote board? Because I've been
Mm,
sitting here thinking about it and I want to save it." And then I was like,
wow.
"Of course you can." And then I decided at that moment, like, that's what I needed to know, like, this needs to continue. Like, just one person that reads it, even.
What was the specific quote? Do you remember?
I really don't remember. I
Okay.
save all my quotes and I've thrown them into a pile. And I keep saying,
Hmm.
like, when I get extra time, I'm going to put them into a book or something. So I just find quotes that I like and put them on post-it notes. And then I go through them and just pick one that I'm feeling kind of that day. And so I don't remember what the exact first one was.
Wow. Well, to end off this interview, do you have a favorite quote that you've just heard in general that is stuck with you throughout life at all?
I have a favorite quote from my dad
Okay.
because he was infamous for saying really like poignant things that are maybe almost crass but relevant.
Hmm.
The example that I gave you before about what's in your head. Um, he used to say to me when stuff would happen, sometimes he would say, "Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered." And so it's a premise about like, don't be greedy because then you're going to get slaughtered. Like there's that fine line between getting fat and getting greedy.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's personally my favorite quote.
It's a really interesting quote. I never heard that before. And I didn't know like when you were gonna stop. So when you say hogs get slaughtered, I didn't know if you were gonna keep going, that you paused. I'm like, wow, that's the whole quote.
That's the
So,
whole quote. But you
so
know what? One of my participants in my group, they see my quotes too. So sometimes they'll be like, "I have a good quote for you," and they'll start giving me quotes.
mhm.
And one of the ones that hit me that's kind of like that, a guy said, "I have a quote for you that I heard that really hit me and I wanted to tell you." I said, "Okay." He said, "Closed mouths don't get fed."
Yeah, I've heard that one before. And when I first heard that, I'm like, wow, that
Yeah.
that stands out.
Yeah. And that's one of those quotes too. Like you could have that quote or say that quote and it means something a little bit different to every person with still the same message in there.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones too, because it just allows you to know that either way you're gonna have to do some type of work to pursue something and to ask and to evolve as you keep going. So
Yeah. Well, if you have a quote that you like, Anthony, send it to me and you might end up seeing it on the board.
I feel so special that I made the famous of Judge O'Neill's board. I might have to think of some. I have a few quotes that I write in my own time, so you never know.
Okay, for real.
I really appreciate the time you gave me. Like seriously, even more like past the assignment. Like I have a podcast and I work for the state news. I'm in the podcast room. I'm the podcast coordinator as well for the state news. So
Oh,
just
awesome.
thank you. So just having the experiences to talk to different type of people and get this type of information, it means the world to me. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. You take care of yourself and I hope to talk to you or see you soon.
You do the same.
All right.